Hey there guys. I recently got a private message from one of my followers who is a little bit of an older person that was unloading one of their pedal-driven fishing kayaks off the top of their car. And it slipped and fell and it actually fractured their pelvis. And believe it or not, this is the second time in less than a year I've had this type of message from one of my followers saying that they've had really severe bone injuries unloading these heavy kayaks. Now, I'm talking about on the lighter end here too of these kayaks. So these are 80 to 90 pound kayaks. There are plenty more heavier kayaks out there on the market. And a common thing that I see from lots of other people on social media when we're talking about dealing with heavy kayaks is that, well, you should just get a truck or you should just get a trailer. But not everybody has the means to go out and buy a new transport vehicle or trailer system just because they wanted to go kayak fishing. A lot of these folks are retirees and they're on a limited income. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about a subject that's really near and dear to me, and that is lightweight kayaks. And these kayaks I'm going to talk about today, I've never fished from them, but I would love to, and they intrigue me. So today I thought I'd talk about 4 fishing kayaks that are under 50 pounds. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so first up is going to be the Crescent Ultralight kayak. Now, this is only a 10.5 foot kayak, and I think, sub 12 foot kayaks have kind of gotten a bad rap in the industry. We tend to talk about them as being not very good for fishing because of their limited storage space, because of their limited tracking ability, and people tend to want something more versatile out of their kayaks that can really perform in lots of different conditions. But in reality, a lot of my followers just tend to be using their kayaks to go trout fishing on their local lakes, because I live in the Pacific Northwest, and maybe chase some kokanee or maybe do some nearshore crabbing in Puget Sound. And for that, you don't really need a 12-foot kayak. A 10.5 foot kayak is perfectly fine. Obviously, it's not going to have the same performance abilities as a bigger kayak or storage, but it doesn't mean that it's not suited for you. And this is the only rotomolded kayak on my list today, and it weighs 49 pounds, so it just squeaks in under my 50-pound limit. But it's at a reasonable price. It's $850, and like I said, this is a rotomolded HDPE plastic kayak, so you get all the benefits of a rotomolded HDPE kayak. It's all that durability, it's strong, it's going to be long lasting, you can beat it up, you can drag it on rocks, you don't have to worry about this thing coming apart. So just some quick specs on the kayak. It's about 30 inches wide and it has a 280 pound capacity. So it's pretty good. It's going to meet most kayak anglers' needs in terms of weight capacity, unless you happen to be a very large angler. It comes with a lifetime warranty, and they can do that because the HDPE plastic is so durable. But what I really like about this kayak is that it has a lot of higher end features in it, and it has a very open deck space. So some of the features I really like about this kayak is that it has gear tracks on the cockpit on both sides and along the stern well. So you can really customize this thing really quickly and easily. I'm just huge fan of gear track because it just makes your life so much easier in terms of placement of rod holders, fish finders, and all those things that we ultimately like to add to our kayak. Another thing I really like about this kayak is it has a very open cockpit space. So they've done a really fantastic job in Crescent. I think that's the thing that sort of sets Crescent aside from other brands, I think, is just how simple they keep their cockpit layout. It's not cluttered with a bunch of junk. So it's really easy to fly fish from because you're not going to hang up on a bunch of stuff. It's just always very simple too. You can add crates, tackle boxes, and things like that, and you're not having to work around all of these different accessory items that a lot of these companies add on to their fishing kayaks. So the simplicity of it actually appeals to me in a lot of ways. Another thing I really like about this kayak that I don't see on a lot of shorter kayaks is they actually paid attention to the keel and hull design a little bit more. I think a lot of manufacturers have sort of just walked away from the sub 11 foot kayak market. And so what we got stuck with is all these really cheap, crappy brands like Lifetime and Pelican, which don't really produce the highest quality kayaks, and so they're just not spending that time really thinking about hull design And with the whole design with the Crescent Ultralight, they actually have a fairly aggressive keel on this, so it'll be able to cut through waves a little bit. They've tried to extend that recessed keel as long as they can along the entire length of the boat so that it tracks a little bit better than a lot of other short kayaks out there. And that's what a lot of the reviews say, is that it tracks a lot better than you would expect. And then they've also created a sort of flare design underneath to create stability. So even though it's relatively short and not that wide, you can still actually stand in it and fish from it. So that's pretty cool. What are some things I don't like about it? They do not have any molded in rod holders. They moved away from that. They have instead little Yak Attack gear track, like Mighty Mounts behind the seats, which I'm not really a fan of those because they're not very strong. I think this kayak actually would have benefited from some in-hole rod storage, as a lot of times I tend to carry my nets and something like that. Additionally, there's no carpeting or foam matting in the cockpit, and I think actually that would benefit a lot. I think it's going to be a rather noisy boat with all that plastic and open cockpit design, so it might spook fish a little bit. So I would suggest adding some sort of carpeting to the front of it. But otherwise, I do kind of like the simple design. It seems pretty good. And it's a boat that really intrigues me. And it would be a boat that I could use on almost 75–80% of the fisheries that I do around my house for bass, kokanee, trout, and things like that. It would handle it just fine, and at sub 50 pounds, it's going to be a joy to load and unload. Okay, next up on my list is actually an inflatable kayak, and that is the Aquaglide Blackfoot 130 Angler. Now, Aquaglide is based out of the Pacific Northwest in Bend, Oregon, so that's kind of cool. And this will be the only inflatable that makes it onto my list, and it's clearly one that was designed for anglers in mind, and it has some really nice features about it. It's not too expensive at $1,300, and it will pack down into its own carrying backpack that you can actually check on an airplane. So if you need a kayak that you can take with you anywhere across the country or world, it might be the kayak for you. Now, Aquaglide is not really a company that specializes in fishing inflatable kayaks. They actually make a whole bunch of like recreational inflatables, anything from slides to jumps and things like that. So they've built things that are durable and meant to be jumped on and thrashed around in the water quite a bit. And because of that, this kayak actually has really positive reviews in terms of its durability. I've watched several channels where these folks are using them from everywhere from Thailand to the United States, dragging these things over logs, rocks, and having very few issues in terms of durability. It's a 13-foot long kayak that is 38 inches wide at its widest point. So it actually has tons of storage space and has a whopping 650-pound capacity thanks to those high sides of those inflatable pontoons that run along the side. Now, the pontoons are made from a Duratex PVC, and the floor is a drop stitch flooring. And if you're not familiar with drop stitch flooring technology on inflatables, it will blow your mind the first time that you see it because it is very rigid. It is very stiff. It feels nothing like traditional inflatable materials. You can even stand on it and it barely flexes at all. And so they've incorporated this drop stitching into the flooring of this kayak. They've even incorporated scupper plugs into this design that allows water that comes into the kayak to self-drain. So you get to stay nice and dry in your inflatable kayak, which is a pretty impressive design feat in my opinion. But there's a bunch of things that really stand out in this inflatable that really separate it from the others for me personally. One is it has a pretty decent warranty. It's got a 2-year warranty, so they'll cover any manufacturing defects there. It also has built-in numerous connection points for base mounts for Scotty, Ram, Hobie, whatever rod holder or accessory company that you're using. They have these mounts all over the sides of the kayak, even down in the cockpit itself, so you can attach whatever accessories that you want to do. Additionally, it comes with an actual like framed chair. It's not some crappy fabric chair or inflatable chair. It's like a real framed mesh chair that you would see on higher end kayaks. That's going to give you that all-day comfort to sit in your kayak. It comes with a cooler, a whole bunch of attachment for accessory points and Velcro, so hook and loop points that you can attach things to this kayak. It's very well thought out. And because of its really high capacity, you can actually add a second seat and fit a second angler in there, because it's 650-pound capacity. You can quite easily fit 2 average sized men, and it'll be a really good platform if you want to go out and take your kids along, or bring along one of your 4-legged friends as well. So it's a very cool design. You know, some of the challenges though, obviously with inflatables, is there is always that durability concern if you do get a puncture. Because it's PVC, it should be relatively easy to patch. Additionally, it's got those higher sides, so it will catch wind a little bit more. And because it doesn't have a real strong keel, it probably won't track as well. They've tried to fix that by adding a small detachable keel on the other side, like a plastic keel like you would see like on a surfboard, and so, or a sup, and that will allow you to track a little bit better. But I still think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, especially in any kind of windy conditions. But overall, it's a very interesting kayak, and as somebody who travels a lot, especially now that COVID's starting to go away and I can start traveling the world and chasing some of those fish that I've always wanted to on my bucket list, it's one that really intrigues me because I love the idea of being able to check my kayak into my luggage on the airplane. The third kayak on my list is one that I'm actually going to take the time to rent from somewhere this year and fish from it, because I've just been very curious about its performance, and that is the Hobie Mirage Lynx. Okay, this is a $3,000 kayak, so we're getting up there in expenses. It comes with Hobie's standard 3-year warranty. It's 11 foot long. It's kind of a strange meshed design of a fishing kayak meets a sup meets a surfboard. So lots of different technologies featured in this kayak. Like I said, it's 11 foot long. It's very wide, so it's 36 inches wide, but it's very flat, so it's more like a sup when you're sitting on top of it. So it's lots of open deck space, not much railing involved, okay? It has a 350-pound capacity, but it's got Hobie's fancy, comfortable chairs, and it also comes with a rudder, which is the only kayak or canoe I'm going to talk about today that actually has a rudder system, and that's really handy when it comes to fishing. And of course, it's driven by the Hobie Mirage 180 drive, which a lot of you are familiar with. So those flippers that go back and forth, but it also comes with the kick-up fin technology. So if you run into something, the fins just fold up, which is a really nice feature that they incorporated a few years ago. So the reason this kayak makes the list is because its whole weight is 47 pounds. After you add all of the rudder and the chair and everything, it's actually more than 50 pounds. But in terms of loading and unloading, you'll just be taking 47 pounds off of your roof rack, which is a fairly easy thing to do compared to a lot of the heavier kayaks out there. Now, what's unique about the Hobie Mirage Lynx is the hull construction. So they have a molded, thermomolded plastic shell over a fiberglass shell over a foam core. So this is more like surfboard technology, and that's what gives it its strength and rigidity, but also keeps it lightweight. But it does sacrifice on the durability side. So I've seen lots of reports of Hobies getting dings and dents. And in fact, I've stopped and looked at every Hobie Lynx that I can anytime I go into a kayak shop. And inevitably, I can always find brand new ones that have dinks and dents in them just from shipping. So the durability definitely doesn't seem to be as good as an HDPE kayak. And I think it would be incorrect to assume that it would be. These are definitely more fragile kayaks, just by their very nature of the materials that are used to construct them. But like I said, there's a lot to like about them. It has that really comfortable chair. It has a rudder system. It has a pedal drive system that can go in forward and reverse. It has a gear track system. And what's even better is you can mount Hobie's H-rails on there, which opens up a whole opportunity in terms of mounting other things, including your fish finders, rod holders, and even small downriggers on those Hobie H-rails. So that's kind of a cool feature. And what I think it's great about the design of this kayak is just how open it is. It'll be very easy to handle fish and pull fish into the kayak because there's no railing in your way. It'll also be very easy for fish to bounce out of the kayak too. But for me, it looks like a great platform for a lot of the smaller bodies of water around here: trout, bass, kokanee, walleye, and it would be a really fun platform for crabbing out of, because that big flat open deck just sort of begs to have a few crab pots stacked on top of it. So a very interesting kayak. For me, I think the greatest concern is the tracking due to the absence of a really strong keel or recessed hull. It's just not there. I've looked underneath them. It's relatively flat. So I think anytime there's wind or current, you're going to struggle. Thankfully, it has that rudder to help offset that a little bit. But with its length and width, it does feel like, to me, it probably won't handle great in terms of tracking. And then lastly, of course, is that durability issue. A lot of folks have added skid plates on various places, stick-on skid plates, where they're common wear points. And it seems like if you go and look at the reviews, a lot of those wear points have been identified, and you can probably preemptively protect those areas and get a longer lifespan out of your Mirage Lynx. Okay, my last one is a bit of an outlier, so it's not actually a kayak, but it's actually a pack canoe. And I think this might be the best option for people who are severely limited in terms of the amount of weight that they can physically handle, but still want to get out on a watercraft on their local small bodies of water and catch fish. And that is these pack canoes. This last year, I fished out of the Sportsman's Discovery Solo 119, so it's an 11'9" pack canoe. And what I like about pack canoes is that almost all of them are designed to use double-bladed paddles, so kayak paddles. So it's very easy for me to transition from fishing out of a kayak in a pack canoe because they feel very similar. They tend to have a little bit better seats rather than traditional canoe seats where you sit up high. These pack canoes tend to have more of a cockpit style seat down inside, which gives you some stability, gives you additional comfort. That's not true for all brands, but it's true for the one that I'm talking about today, and that is the Swift Canoe Pack 12.6. So this is a 12.5 foot canoe, and it's got a lot of features that are really well thought out for anglers. There's a lot of pack canoes out there that are sub 30 pounds, which is impressive, but very few of them, I feel, are designed with any kind of fishing in mind. They're really just for recreational touring. But this one really separates itself in a couple of ways. Just going over some quick details, it's 12.5 feet long, 28 inches wide, so it's rather narrow. So it has a useful weight capacity of 260 pounds, but it is rated up to 375. Honestly, I think this is not a watercraft for really big anglers. I would look to a larger canoe. The great thing about canoes is there's so many different sizes. Now the Swift 12.6 pack canoe comes in several different construction configurations, but if you go with the carbon Kevlar combination, it weighs a remarkable 22 pounds. That's right, 22 pounds. And carry that with one hand, no problem. If you go with just the heavier, just Kevlar version, it's 28 pounds. So a really impressive number in terms of portability. You'll be hard pressed to find people who can't handle carrying a 20-pound canoe, and even then you can still put it on a cart and drag this thing around like it's nothing, even loaded down with your gear for the day. Very futuristic looking. They're quite beautiful with this laminate covering, this epoxy coverings over these Kevlar and carbon fiber bases. They're very attractive kayaks, very sleek looking, and they have sleek price tags. Unfortunately, almost all of them on the industry vary anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000. So you will be paying for this, but if you're a person who really has no other options, or you really have a lot of small bodies of water that you want to access, that you want to be able to carry your watercraft into, this is a really good choice. It's very durable material. It's going to give you a lifetime of service if you take care of it. Now, what I like about the Swift canoes over its competitors is they have lots of really customizable features, including they've incorporated gear track into those, so you can mount rod holders and fish finders and things like that that you need to. They've also added, rather than using traditional foot peg rests, which forces your knees and legs out to the side, instead you can add a carbon bar across there. That allows you to rest your feet in any configuration. And one of the things I note immediately, anytime I fish out of a sit-inside kayak, or I'm fishing out of a canoe, and I have to have my legs forced out, pushed up against the side on these pegs all day, is I will get fatigue in my hip, just because you're just trying to hold and push against in one position all day. You don't have any flexibility in your position. By transitioning to a bar, it gives you some flexibility. Now, what are some things I don't like about this design? I think that my main concerns obviously is the price. It's very, very expensive, but I believe that it is costly to produce them. There's limited customization too, so you won't be able to add drill or add things on. I don't think you'd want to because of the materials. So you'd have to come up with some sort of customizable crate in the back to add additional features that you're looking for. Otherwise, you're really going to be constrained to those gear track systems on the front. But otherwise, it looks like a really neat pack canoe, and they have varying models that go up into the 13-foot range, and some of them still in the 12.5-foot range are a little bit wider. That will give you a little bit more capacity too. I'll put links to all of these watercraft below so you can research them yourself. All right, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on a sub 50-pound fishing kayak or canoe that's caught your attention or that you are actually fishing from and enjoy. And I would love to hear about it. Tell me in the comments section below, and I'll see you next time. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Bye, guys.